Welcome to Bodhi Unified Flow. I'm your host, Dr. Marimuthu, and here we're all about simplifying complexity and amplifying your performance. Today, we are unpacking an absolutely crucial framework, subcontractor management during the procurement phase. We're talking about moving way beyond basic check-the-box administrative compliance. We are getting into fundamentally engineered risk mitigation. That means applying strict pre-qualification rigor to your subcontractors, ensuring contract obligations actually flow down, guaranteeing prompt payment, and religiously tracking those KPIs. Let's dive right in. Here is a quick look at our agenda for today's explainer. We're going to start by tackling the subcontractor challenge, then move into pre-qualification rigor, flow down obligations, prompt payment, and KPI monitoring, before finally synthesizing everything we've learned. By the end of this session, you're going to have a clear, actionable framework to mitigate your project risks. Section 1. The Subcontractor Challenge, Navigating Systemic Risks in Modern Construction. Right off the bat, we have to acknowledge that in today's highly fragmented, inflationary landscape, a single subcontractor's failure can literally cascade through your entire project. Moving right into Section 2. Pre-qualification rigor, vetting both nominated and domestic subcontractors. This is the critical juncture where the success of your project is either engineered or completely compromised. Now, as organizations like the Construction Industry Development Council constantly advocate, we absolutely must move away from the traditional, lowest price-based L1 contracting system. It just doesn't work anymore. So that brings up a really critical question. How do we actually look past a big price and measure a subcontractor's true capacity to survive and deliver? Because let's be honest, a low bid means absolutely nothing if that subcontractor lacks the financial resilience to buy materials during a massive inflationary spike, or if they don't have the technical capacity to do the work safely. We need a structured, objective framework to evaluate their true operational health well before any contracts are signed. Think of a robust pre-qualification regime as a sturdy three-legged stool built on three fundamental pillars: capital, capacity, and character. For capital, we're evaluating metrics like the debt-to-equity ratio to make sure the firm can actually weather financial storms and pay their own people. Under capacity, we're verifying they have the actual resources and technical expertise for our exact scope of work. And finally, character. You can't skip this one. We are looking at past performance and objective safety records, like their lost time injury frequency rate, or LTIFR. When you put these three pillars together, you're no longer just blindly accepting the lowest bid. You are doing real, data-driven risk underwriting. While you're applying all this rigor, it's really essential to understand the distinction between domestic and nominated subcontractors. So domestic subcontractors are selected directly by the main contractor, and that main contractor holds full liability for their performance. On the flip side, nominated subcontractors are pre-selected by the client or owner. Now, this isn't just a minor semantic difference. It carries massive legal implications for design responsibility, delay costs, and workmanship defects, especially under standard contract forms like FIDIC or the CPWD guidelines in India. But here's the bottom line. Regardless of how they are classified, both types have to go through the exact same stringent pre-qualification process. No exceptions. Section 3. Flow down obligations. Synchronizing the contractual environment. So, we vetted them, right? Now we have to make sure our legal framework actually binds them to the exact same standards the project owner expects from the prime contractor. Enter the flow down or conduit clause. This is your ultimate safety net. It's the specific legal mechanism that takes the obligations the prime contractor agreed to in the head contract and systematically transfers them directly down to the subcontractor. Without this clause, you're essentially creating a massive liability vacuum. These clauses exist to prevent gaps in responsibility, making sure the project owner's expectations are upheld by every single tier of the supply chain, from the very top to the very bottom. So what exactly needs to flow down? Well, all of your critical obligations. Health and safety standards, for instance, like compliance with the BOCW Act in India or OSHA regulations, must be explicitly transferred. The exact same rule applies to quality assurance protocols aligned with specific IS codes or ISO standards. And in today's highly digital landscape, you simply have to flow down your building information modeling execution plans and employers' information requirements. Doing this creates a unified contractual environment. No one is operating in a silo, and the owner's vision for a high-quality, digitally coordinated asset is strictly preserved. That brings us to Section 4, prompt payment, securing the supply chain's lifeblood. Because you can have the best pre-qualification process in the world and ironclad contracts, but if cash stops moving, the project stops moving. I really want you to take a second and internalize this concept. Liquidity is lifeblood. It's an undeniable truth in construction. Imagine a massive multi-million-dollar infrastructure project, completely derailed, just because one Tier 3 supplier wasn't paid for their scaffolding. It happens. Delayed payments at the top trickle down incredibly fast. That leads to missed payrolls, labor strikes, supplier liens, and eventually, total subcontractor default. Ensuring timely cash flow isn't some administrative courtesy. It's a foundational risk management strategy. And here is something you might find surprising. There is incredibly powerful global legislation designed to legally enforce this cash flow. Take India's Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises Development Act, the MSMED Act of 2006, as a prime example. This special statute provides such rigorous protections for smaller suppliers that it actually supersedes general contract law and even private arbitration agreements. There's no getting around it. You see similar powerful acts globally, like SOPA in Australia, or the Prompt Payment Acts across the US and UK. Adhering to these, which is thankfully made easier today by automated digital financial workflows, is absolutely critical to shielding your supply chain from cash flow insolvency. Section 5. KPI monitoring, tracking performance through earned value. All right, we vetted them, contracted them, and paid them. Now, we have to verify they are actually delivering real value on the ground. If liquidity is the lifeblood, then KPIs are the vital signs of your project. They give you the hard, objective data you need to manage proactively rather than constantly putting out fires. The gold standard for tracking this is the Earned Value Management Framework, or EVM. It's highly logical and breaks down into 3 simple steps. First, quantify the exact amount of work you planned for a period. Second, measure the physical work actually completed. And third, compare those figures against the real costs incurred to date. It strips away all the guesswork and gives you a crystal clear picture of project efficiency. Within that EVM framework, you really need to be generating and tracking 2 primary indices, the Cost Performance Index, or CPI, and the Schedule Performance Index, or SPI. Consistently tracking these metrics is like having an early warning radar. If a subcontractor's CPI drops below 1.0, watch out. They are burning cash faster than they are creating value. If their SPI drops below 1.0, they are falling behind your planned schedule. By tracking these KPIs, you can step in and course correct months before a bad trend derails the whole project. Section 6. Synthesis and Objectives, Achieving Predictive Excellence. Let's pull everything we've talked about today together and review exactly what we've achieved in this explainer. At the end of the day, effective subcontractor management is a continuous, tightly integrated cycle. It starts with rigorous vetting based on capital, capacity, and character. Then you lock in meticulous contracting using strict flow-down clauses. After that, it requires consistent, prompt paying in full, adherence to legislative acts like the MSMED Act. And finally, it relies on constant monitoring using EVM and KPIs. When you implement this cycle, you effectively shift your entire operation away from the absolute chaos of reactive management and elevate your project toward true predictive excellence. So, by now, you are equipped with the tools to make that shift. You know exactly how to apply strict rigor to weed out systemic risks before they start. You understand why conduit clauses are essential to flow down health, safety, quality, and digital obligations. You recognize that prompt payment is the strategic lifeblood for your supply chain, and you know how to leverage EVM frameworks to monitor performance. By doing these things, you aren't just managing subcontractors, you're treating them as true strategic partners and holding them to the same high standards as the prime contractor. Here is a look at the professional guidelines from the CII, RICS, and the various legal statutes that informed our explainer today. Thank you so much for joining us at Bodhi Unified Flow. But before you go, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Look at your current projects and ask yourself honestly, are your current procurement practices actively building resilience, or are you just leaving the door wide open for risk? I'm Dr. Marimuthu, reminding you to simplify complexity and amplify your performance. Catch you next time.